906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Make it fresh, make it yours. The UP is home to a wealth of great places, natural wonders, and unique people. It's also a land steeped in tradition. Traditions like hunting, and in many cases, hunting means going to camp.
Nothing spectacular here, except it was my first deer and I was 18 years old.
Sit back, put your feet up and the remote down, and stick around for the special edition of 906 Outdoors UP Camp Stories.
Up here, we just turn back the clock, live life the way we want it to be.
9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. "906 Outdoors" is brought to you in part by Christ, your Northwoods neighborhood store. This part of the country is known for its 4 seasons. The shorter but no less important season seems to get overlooked by those who are not in the know. In between the fall and winter seasons lies firearm deer season. We each celebrate it in our own way, but there are some traditions shared by many. One such tradition is deer camp. Camps across the UP get used throughout the year, but it's only now, this time of year, when its name changes from camp to deer camp. I sat down with longtime hunter Tom Olsen Sr. to talk about camp, along with a few deer stories.
Year since 1985 that I started hunting on this property right here. We used to hunt down the road further and stayed in a camping trailer. And I had a lot of friends that would come in relation and spend nights, and hunting is relatively fair. The camp was built in 1921 by a guy called Whiskey Joe Janowski. The barn was built, I believe, 3 years later. A lot of work I've done on this place and the kids helping me. We've had a lot of wonderful things happen here with the wildlife, and we used to come every weekend. It didn't make any difference if it was winter or not. And I used to drive back and forth every weekend up here, and my wife would come and stay on. Vacations were just a few days before deer season now. Most everyone will be here and looking forward to it again.
Everyone will be here. Those words, in a lot of ways, sum up what deer camp is about. At the very least, it's a main ingredient. Another essential ingredient is deer stories.
Nothing spectacular here, except it was my first deer and I was 18 years old. Opening day south of Covington, Michigan. And it was 4 miles down the road and up in the hills where they dynamited the road to get through to make Highway 141. And I'd never hunted there before, and it was colder than hell. And we drove up there in a 41 Chevy, and we had built a little cabin on that land because my dad said that you could build, at that time, a camp on state land if you didn't lock the door, so other people could use it. That had one window in it. It was a tar paper shack over 6 trees that we cut off about 6 feet high and made a nice roof, and we had some old doors that we used for a floor. In those days we used to use charcoal in a coffee can, or take a roll of toilet paper and use denatured alcohol, and that really worked quite well. It was nice in a little cabin, but up on that hill and them hardwoods, the wind would blow through there, and man, you wonder what the hell am I doing here. One of my dad's rituals, the first thing he had to do when he'd get out hunting, he'd always make a fire. And it really worked too, because he did shoot 2 bucks in 50 years, so that's experience tells you how good it really is. But he'd have to make a campfire out there. He'd say, well, this draws the deer to you. I think he might have seen 2 deer in 25 years, I don't know. But that's the way he used to be. Coffee and cigarettes and campfires.
906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by Orion Hunting Products.
We hunted out of that tar paper shack for 3 or 4 years, but on opening day, it was 3:45 in the afternoon and this deer walked out. Broadside, I hadn't sat down maybe just a few minutes, and I thought at first it was an elk. Well, I was hunting with a Savage 219-30-30 single shot, so I missed him. And he just kind of walked off a little bit, and I reloaded and fired again, and I could see that I had hit him. Anyhow, he dressed out at 230 pounds, believe it or not, 230 pounds. I had mentioned I had a 41 Chevy. And it took 3 of us to get him up on the fender, but we couldn't leave him there because his hoofs dragged on the ground. That's how big he was. So we finally managed to get him up on the roof. And on the way home, we stopped in a town called Amasaw and had some breakfast, and a lot of people came out and looked at it. A lot of old timers. Some people were guessing as high as 250 pounds. Now we don't go up there at all because you could hunt there for a whole week and never see a deer. That's how bad it was. So we came down to Menominee County and hunted in a place up by the Menominee River on Chalk Hills Road where you could see a couple dozen a day, easy. Still exciting, but I'll never forget how cold it was sitting up in them hardwood trees. I'm going way back now, before this camp. I rented a trailer. This one particular year, I think it was in '57, but I went over to pick up the trailer I rented and they forgot at the trailer rental that I rented that trailer. But he said, well, we got one old trailer over there I can let you take. He said, but you don't have no heater in it. Well, we didn't have any choice. So I rented it, and all that was in that trailer was an old-time ice box. You have to put a block of ice in there, and 3-burner cook stove, no heater. And I mean to tell you, that was one of the coldest things you could ever believe. I had my brother-in-law come up from Chicago, and he hunted with us that year. He put newspapers on the floor because it was so cold. And we used that gas burner, there was 3 burners, we used that for heat. Well, you could stand up in the trailer and it would be so hot at the ceiling you could hardly breathe. But in bed, it was the coldest that you could ever believe. Years ago, who the hell ever thought of letting a buck go? Me too. I shot him. I was happy to get one. It didn't make any difference. If you've seen a buck and it had 3-inch antlers, that was it. But you know, we used to shoot a lot of nice big bucks also. Not all spikes or scrubs. Yeah, this was in 1995 when I shot this. But I will say that 5 years before I shot this buck, this antler right here, we found it in the yard. Believe it or not, 5 years later, I got this one with a muzzle loader on the 5th day of muzzle loading season, and I hunted almost every day of the season and never seen an antler. So you guys out there that are not believers that there's nothing here, just keep going and you'll see that patience pays off. And I had a 3rd set. Believe it or not, I had this plus this one and one other one all from the same deer in the same area. 20 to 4 in the afternoon, and it was quite a nice warm day for deer hunting. And I hadn't seen a buck the entire season. And I thought, if a spike horn comes, this is it. 3 does were coming, and in the back of them I could see this. He got down in front of me amongst them other does there, and I couldn't tell which one it was, so I had to look through the binoculars to make sure I was going to shoot the right one, and it was the 3rd one back, and boom. Called my son up who worked in Bark River, and he came after dark with a couple of his friends, and It didn't really go that far. I think maybe just a couple 100 yards. Came back to camp with his friends and we played a little smear, drank some beers, and that's the end of that story.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Rapid River Knife Works, home of Michigan's largest custom knife factory showroom. They say studies show that if children don't have an interest in an activity before the age of 10, it's unlikely they will continue with that activity later in life. Preserving traditions like hunting and deer camp start with a simple introduction.
Well, I guess I can think of another story to tell you. And it's got to do with my grandchildren hunting up here since they could hardly walk in boots. And one was 9 years old, and 1 year he was hunting over there with me. Here comes a buck. He shot the buck, and he got it. And then, not to be outdone, his younger brother, same story. Here comes a buck. And he's looking at that buck, and I'm looking at him, and he wasn't excited, nothing, calm as could be. And when the buck was coming, I whispered, I said, wait till he stops. I said, shoot him right where I showed you. And he poked me in the ribs. Don't tell me, I know how to hunt. Bang, and he got it. 30-06, 8 years old. So he's got a buck over there with me, and you know, it's a family thing as time goes by, and now the grandsons have got grandsons, and I don't know how many of them are going to be hunters, but stories like that are keepsakes, and I'm sure his dad still has the antlers from those bucks.
It becomes a family tradition and provides a connection rarely found otherwise.
Last year we had 4 generations of the Olsons up here. 4 generations. 2 maybe hunters and 1 I'm not too sure about. But it goes to show you how the time goes by so fast. Here from grandchild to great-great-grandchild.
It creates irreplaceable memories that last a lifetime, and then some.
Well, yeah, I've been hunting a long time. I used to go with my dad when I was 12 and 13 years old. Oh boy, and opening day of deer season was like Christmases to kids now. And I'm sure a lot of your viewers feel the same way, a lot of your hunters, but you know, there comes a time in the age when things are different. I can't take the cold like I used to. And therefore I have a heater in my little palace over there. But you can sit there year after year after year, and guess what? You're an old man. Gonna be 84. And am I gonna consider quitting hunting? Maybe next year. Even though age don't stop, you still get that feeling. And yeah, I still want to hunt here, you betcha.
So is deer season, hunting, and the tradition of deer camp about years past? All the memories, buck stories, good times at camp? Or is it about today? What time should I head out? Which way is the wind blowing? Where should I hunt? Or maybe it's about years to come. The anticipation of next year's season, hunting with and teaching the next generation of hunters, watching your kids, then your grandkids, and maybe your great-grandkids hang their first buck on the pole. The answer is, of course, yes.
I guess the special thing in camp is being with your family and everybody all together. You know, I still think about it during the week, and all the work that I've done here and how fast the years have gone by. But like I said, we used to have gardens and a lot of family get-togethers up here, and some people are here and some people are there and all, but a lot of memories that I really cherish. And I'm sure most of you guys that hunt out there know what I'm talking about, especially when You can be with your family. You don't need nothing special. We used to hunt out of a camping trailer, and I remember one time it was just a 5 sleeper, and we had 13 people in there for the supper. And up here at this place, there's no place like it. It's this is heaven on earth, and we all enjoy it.
.906 Outdoors is brought to you by Race Driven, your source for premier power sports products. It's time for a 906 Outdoors Wild Game Break, brought to you by Orion Hunting Products. It starts as the first wisp of cool fall air hits the woods. It's a different kind of cool air. You just know it's fall. And that triggers a variety of fall-related activities that have been on hold since the end of last fall. It's time to start watching deer, checking their patterns, where are they, and when. For many, it's also time to check over the blind. Make sure a bear didn't rip the door off, clean out the porky droppings, and chase away the mice. Through the years, I've seen blinds of all sizes, shapes, and configurations. This one is different. It's easy to set up and take down. It's light, durable, quiet, it's critter-proof, weatherproof, and, well, it's just pretty cool. It's the creation of Orion Hunting Products in Iron Mountain. I talked with Orion founder and president Bo Anderson about how and where it all got started.
Started looking at the deer blind market as a whole, and what was out there that was being manufactured was fully assembled stuff, and you needed to have a fork truck or a tractor with forks on it to move this 800-pound enclosure to wherever you want it to go. So from there, we just started to come up with the concept of this modular design where it's panel-based, but super quick. So we gave ourselves a goal of about 10 minutes assembly. So from packaging to fully assembled, our goal is about 10 minutes, and we've been able to accomplish that through a now patented overlap and latch technique, where each panel overlaps the other panel, and then a simple latch gets thrown. There's 3 latches per panel, 24 in total. And that concept has stuck. As we've grown and we've brought on more CNC controlled equipment and computer controlled equipment, our finishes have all just improved, our quality has improved, and come a long way since the times in the garage.
The day after my visit with Tom, I got a report that he filled his tag, so I stopped in again for an update.
On opening day in the afternoon at 1:45, here comes a nice buck, and in back of it came another one. And the first one was a nice one, but the second one was a real trophy. Very high antlers, yellowish in color, nice buck. Well, I wanted to get that one, but he never came out, but the 8-pointer did, and most hunters would be very comfortable by shooting him, and I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to shoot him. But my son has got a bunch of lure, and it's called Pure Whitetail Peaches. Well, I went and made a scrape yesterday morning after hunting at 10:30, about 100 feet away from my blind, and there is never any scrapes in that country, never. So I went and made that scrape and shot 12, 15 drops of that peaches lure in there, and I stopped at my son's camp. I says, I just made a scrape over there. Like, that's 10:30 now. Well, whoever dreamed what's going to happen, because it's like a fairy tale. I made that scrape, and I went back there. I was in my blind at 12 o'clock, Menominee time. And at 2:57, this guy walks out across a little trail right into that scrape. And there he is with his big head in there, and he's scraping with his front hoofs. And he was there for a bit, and then he backed up. That's when I put the binoculars down, because I couldn't see his head down below that little hill. There was a tree there where I had to scrape. But anyhow, he backed up, and then I had that carbine in my hands. And on them Winchester carbines, there's the first click is safety, the second click is fire. Well, he's starting to walk away, and when I had cocked it, he must have heard that second click, and he made a quarter turn and looked back at me, and I gave it to him right in back of the shoulder here. When I pulled the trigger, all I could see was hoofs and legs up in the air. Ass over tea kettles, he went. And I said, what the hell? And he just laid there a little bit, and he quivered, and he died a very, very quick death. This deer supposedly is 5.5 years old, and it's quite a story. I was on the program the other night. I want to thank Channel 6 and you, Brian, for putting that on. We've had calls from Florida, Chicago, Illinois, Wisconsin, all over the place, and they kept coming and coming. I never had so many just wonderful things that people say, and up here in this U.P country with all the great hunters we have here in Menominee and Dickinson and all over, it's just a blessing to have that kind of support. I was asked if I thought about hunting, and I said, I think about it every year, and I was really serious about bringing that muzzle loader because I thought if I could get a nice buck with that, I'd close out the season. Well, I'll be back here next year. Like my dad says, I'll be out there if you got to bring me in a wheelchair. Well, I'm not in a wheelchair yet, and I don't expect to be.
Feel free to join us on Facebook or visit us at 906outdoors.com. Thanks for watching, and we invite you to join us next week for another adventure right here on 906 Outdoors.